And the Mindstate Marketing Hour is back, and I'm your host, Steve Brown. That's right, the smartest guy in marketing, because I get to hang out with Will Leach every week and use his insights from his book on this show. Will, how are you doing? Where are you?
Hey, we have a special edition of the Mindstate Marketing Hour. I am in a place called Maryville, Tennessee, and behind me is a part of my house and the Smoky Mountains, if you guys could see back there. And
oh, that's beautiful.
The pine trees are really, really tall right now. And given the price of wood, I'm surprised that the owner hasn't cut down those hasn't cut those things down. But all that being said, behind there is the Smoky Mountains. That's it. So I'm here visiting my mom, and Nick gets to see Nana, and I get to spend a couple of days with my family. So it's a great, great week for me.
Well, awesome. So you're a Tennessee volunteer, huh?
I am not a Tennessee volunteer, though my family would love that. I'm a Florida Gator. My family moved here right after I graduated from Florida, they moved to Tennessee. So we have a little bit of a rift in our family because they've been here now for 25 years or so, and they have a lot of Vols over here, a lot of fans of Tennessee. So we're right down the road from Knoxville, as a matter of fact.
So here's Will Leach. He's being the professional he is. Where, Will Leach, if you don't have his book, Marketing to Mind States, it's a great book. It's the practical guide to applying behavior design to research and marketing. And this book really helped me understand that people evaluate your brands from a certain state of mind. We all think everyone's in one frame of mind. That guy's positive all the time. That guy's negative all the time, but it's not true. We go through all these emotions, but what's interesting and what Will's research has revealed is that when you're evaluating a solution, you're usually in a certain state of mind. And if a marketer can be enlightened and apply that insight to the messaging, then they can create messaging that resonates, that makes them feel like, wow, they really get me. I'm going to hang out here longer because I'm safe. Will, thanks for writing that book.
Hey, it's my pleasure. My passion is now my pleasure. And so thanks for having me. And yeah, I think we've talked about it. We're just trying to make business run smoother, marketing run better, and make the world a little bit better place. So that's why we're here talking.
All right. So this is part 2 of what we're calling, is it time for a brand refresh? And if anything has happened in the past year or two, we've realized that whatever we showed up with when the torpedo of the pandemic hit our ships, that whatever we showed up with wasn't what we needed to make it through. And so now's a great time to really sit back, think about, take an assessment, and consider a refresh. Why is this on your heart at this time, Will?
Yep, it was just because the last couple of months, my clients have come back to me and just said, we're not sure if we're doing what we should be doing because our sales are in a slump. And we didn't do anything different. Like, we're doing the same messaging we've been doing because we're supposed to be consistent with the brand. And it dawned on me that, yes, you should be consistent with your brand, but maybe you need to tweak your brand messaging to fit the new psychology of your customer, because everything has changed so much in the last 18 months. And because of all this massive change, your customers may just need slightly different feeling coming from you. And so these brand refreshes, is what we're calling them, are a great way of reevaluating your brand through the lens of your customer, so you can identify small tweaks you can make to your customer experience, your messaging, even your positioning, so that you can resonate with the new customer, because everybody has changed. We just know that.
I'm just marveling at how you're just can sit in a rocking chair on a porch in the Smoky Mountains, and it's just like you're back at the house doing this.
Yeah. Well, I might be inspired today with all the birds and everything else. It's definitely not Dallas, that's for sure.
All right. So let's review the last week's, the steps 1 through 3, please.
That's right. So what we said last week is you have to start these refreshes first and foremost by understanding your customer. So what we did is we talked about this idea of regrounding in your customer. And what I mean by regrounding is you have to go back to your customer and just evaluate whether or not their aspirations have changed given the last 18 months. And we know from a lot of our research is that there have been some strong changes in people's aspirations. Most of the time, people are much more focused on safety and security. They're more focused on control because they've lacked control over the last couple of months. And lastly, this feeling of release. So we know that across lots of different industries, those are three things that customers have fundamentally changed. So you first have to reground yourself in your customer. Based upon that, now, if you found out that their aspirations have changed, step two is to now start thinking about repositioning your brand. Now, what I mean by repositioning is not rebranding. That is not what you should do. We talked about that last week. But however, what you should do is how would you adjust your positioning knowing that your customers' aspirations have changed? Because it's my contention that if you are not positioning yourself to meet the aspirations of your customer, then you're positioning yourself to meet your aspirations, and your aspirations don't count in your customer's overall story. They have wants, needs, desires, and you need to help them reach those aspirations. So there's simple ways you can do to retweak your brand positioning. And there's a whole activity that we do in a program that teach you how to reposition. That's still strategic. I'm not talking about messaging. I'm just talking about how to think about your company and how it delivers its products, its services, and its messaging. Then after that, the next thing you should do is step three, which would be let's revamp your offer. Because if, for instance, you are going to tweak your positioning to where now you're going to provide a little bit more control, because you know that your customers' new aspirations are to gain greater control over whatever it is that you serve or whatever it is that you're helping them with. Well, how would you look at your offers differently and provide more control? And so that's just a pure brainstorming. That's just you getting in there into the weeds of what your products, your services, your coaching program, whatever it is that you're doing, and making sure that it actually delivers. Because it's not fair to them if you change all of your messaging and reposition your brand, but you deliver the same old product that doesn't help them reach their aspirations. That was steps 1 through 3 last week. Now, in this week, we're going to focus on now how do you communicate to others, your customers, to let them know that you've changed a little bit, that you totally get who they are, and you now have a brand that's ready to meet their needs.
All right. So now we get to the fun part, the messaging stuff, the most important. The messaging, actually, which is really exciting to me, is the biggest thing that you have a lever to move and make a big impact. Why is that, Will?
That's right. I always say in my classes all the time, you can't control where somebody is when they get a message. You can't control who they're with. You can't control their emotional state. The one thing you do control, and as a marketer, as a small business owner, you control the way you communicate to people. That's your website. That's your customer care. That is your tweets. That is your social media platform. That's your PR strategy. These are things that are controllable. So this is why I get so excited as well, Steve, because this other stuff is really difficult to figure out a way to control. So the first thing we want to do is step 4, which is reframing your messaging. Now, let me talk about what I mean by that. So there are 2 different psychological frames that your customers are under when they're evaluating any product or services, anything out there. They're either what's called an optimistic frame or a cautious frame. Now, an optimistic frame is that frame where people are seeking help to maximize good things happening to them so that they can maximize good things so they can reach their aspirations. That's optimistic. Very different way of looking at the world versus those that are cautious. Now, cautious frames are people who are very focused on how can I eliminate barriers? How can I eliminate risk so that I can reach my goal? Now, imagine that your customers used to be more optimistic. We had a booming economy here. So a lot of winners were booming in the economy a couple of years ago. But now because of COVID and because of the pandemic, now people have lost revenues. They may have had to let go of people. I don't know what the situation is, but people may have shifted to a more cautious framework. Well, or an approach. Well, how would you change your messaging if you knew that people are a little more risk adverse? They're a little more cautious in nature. Well, you would actually tone your messaging to that different approach, because if you do that, it'll lower resistance. Right now, people are crazy resistant with their marketing. They feel like they're being oversold, they're being overmarketed to, and frankly, they are. So there's this mechanism that you can use to help lower that resistance, because right now there's an initial resistance to almost anything out there, almost anything. So how do you do it? You now take and you tweak your messaging, you reframe it, and you either speak about how all these good things will happen if they buy your offer, or how all these bad things will not happen if they buy your offer. I know it sounds small, guys, but if you do that, you can lower that psychological resistance. Because like you said, Steve, it'll just feel natural. It'll feel like, oh, you get me. You know that I'm a little bit risk adverse right now. So message to that.
So let's talk about some examples. It makes sense, but give us some examples. A guy like me needs to see how the rubber's made. No, that's how the rubber hits the road. Anyway,
I'll help you. So So one of the things we talk about, and I'll use this example just to be consistent, is healthy eating. And if you are, for instance, if you manufacture some healthy snack out there or some sort of a bar or whatever, you may be thinking to yourself, well, how do I use this? Optimistic versus cautious. Take this. So let's say if your customers are optimistic, meaning they want to maximize the advantages of being healthy. So now you're going to talk about your bar, whatever the meals are that you're providing, your exercise program, whatever, right? You're going to talk about if you buy this or if you take this, you're going to get better vitamins and minerals. You're going to get more energy. You're going to have more focus, right? You're going to be able to build muscle. You could take that exact same product, that exact same coaching program, but if you saw that people now are in this more cautious framework, you would talk to them in a very different way. You would talk about how we've eliminated the bad ingredients that have hurt you in the past. We're eliminating your desire, or we're eliminating lethargy or fat. We're getting rid of fat, right? So either you're going to focus on the things that you're getting rid of and the bad things, that would be cautious, or you're going to talk about the good things that you've inputted into your program or inputted into your bar. So I know it sounds very small, but again, these small little details will matter as it relates to somebody who wants to either seek good things happening to them or maybe eliminate these bad things that are happening to them.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. So we're learning how the rubber's made.
Hopefully.
Or how the sausage is made. All right. So next, refresh your business strategy.
Yeah. So this, guys, is, I want to get messaging out there quickly because I want to grow sales very quickly for you, right? Like, why would you wait? But you also have to take a step back and think to yourself, well, how should my entire business strategy, the thing that I was trying to do, how should that change? And these are not temporary things that you're going to, just change it for a couple of weeks. Like, you may actually fundamentally have to change your business strategy. And what I think about this is thinking about, now that you know whether somebody is cautious or optimistic, and now that you know what their feelings are, their desired feelings, we talked about that last week when we talked about how to revamp your offers, and what feeling are you hopefully going to provide your customers with your product and service, with your total business. Now what we do is we combine those things together to form a mind state. It's what their desire is and whether they're cautiously going after that desire or if they're optimistically going on that desire. When you put those two things together, it is a psychological mind state that I talk about in my book, Marketing to Mind States. So once you understand this mind state, now look at your business holistically and you ask yourself, am I helping my customer be an optimistic achiever? Meaning, does my company help maximize my customer's success? Or if cautious, you would say, oh, well, is my company helping to eliminate barriers to success? Are we really taking things out of the process and eliminating barriers that could hurt your company? It's a small question. I'm not telling you to revamp. I just want you to ask the question, is your business strategy aligned with your new customer's mind state?
Will, obviously hanging out with you and learning these things, our clients, imagine they're going like, oh, we really need to get our act together online now because people couldn't come into the store like they normally did. So they were looking for solutions, but also they were very cautious. So one of the things that we did to refresh our business strategy was to allow them to have a couple of meetings with our team, go through the beginning part of the process so that they could learn what it's like to work. They would get something of value, whether they continued on with us or not. So cautious, we're going to remove any mistakes here, which is wasting money and wasting time. And then also help you know that you're going to achieve what you want to do by hanging out with the team.
Love that. And that's such a great example. And that's the example I used last week too, where I had to pivot my business strategy to allow for 2 free weeks on my program, just so, because it's a large investment for anybody of time and of effort. So what you're going to do is you want to deliver that because they're a little bit more cautious. Am I being scammed here in some way? Give it to them for free, for 2 weeks, just so they know who I am, what I believe in, how I'm going to help them, and then let them make the choice. Love that. And that was an absolute business strategy pivot that we made because we saw more kind of anxiety in the marketplace.
All right. So number 6, Will.
Number 6. We now know that our messaging has been refined. Now let's think about our marketing tactics, and what I mean by that is you'll notice in the book, and I talk about it here a lot, is I believe marketing is much broader than just messaging. Marketing is every single touch point. So now let's redesign all of these touch points to be more, are we providing messaging in a way that makes them feel more at ease and that they're in this cautious mindset? So are we lowering their anxieties, or are we improving or maximizing their opportunities? So we're talking to them in a way like, hey, we're here for you. Let's go get it. Giving them that inspiration that sometimes people are looking for. So what I do here is I say, okay, this can get very cumbersome, right? Because you're like, wait a minute, I could have 15 different touch points. And you may, because if you're doing different media strategies, you may have a podcast, a live show, you could have customer care centers, you could have sales people calling, you could have a lot. So what I do is I say, let's focus on the top 3 points of contact. And let's just start there. For many people, that's their website, an email, and maybe a social media post. And what I want you to do is think about those 3 things. And I want you to say, of those 3 things, are we delivering on telling our customer whether or not they are going to minimize bad things from happening, or again, maximizing good things from happening? Are we telling them that we're going to be a success, or that we're going to help them avoid loss or being a failure? So again, what we do is we do we do it only on 3 different touch points, so you can get into used to doing it. And really, you're going to find gaps. You're going to find that, yeah, my website does really well, but you know what? Our emails are still written in a way that's way too optimistic in this given this new mind state. So now what you do is you brainstorm solutions. And I've just done that this morning, I went back to an email sequence that we started with you guys, Steve, about 1.5 years ago. And now when I look at the tonality of that email sequence, that when somebody is in a nurturing campaign, it's off tone. So what I do, I went in there and I said, let's just change the tone. Let's change the words here and there. Let's lower the enthusiasm because everybody doesn't feel enthusiastic anymore, and try to bring in some cautious tones. So I'm going to do that on my website, which we already did, these one nurturing campaign, and also some of our social media, just to see and get in the habit of looking at our 3 major touch points through the lens of a mind state.
Awesome. Good move on that. Hey, lean in a little bit. The clouds have come over. So,
all right.
Yeah, there you are. What a great face. All right. Number 7,
yes.
Reinvigorate your marketing. So, all right, great. We know all this. We learned all this. Now what?
Yep. So at this point, you have uncovered your customers' aspirations, and you've now looked at this whole new world of kind of what your customers' aspirations are. You've revamped your offers. You have now figured out whether or not you need to talk to them in a cautious or an optimistic stage. You've now taken a look at a few of your touch points to look at those in a way to make sure that it's still delivering on that mind state. Now I say your entire marketing, you need to reinvigorate your marketing, meaning go from a point of strategy all the way to tactics to all of your customer experience touch points. So now we start off with just 3. Now I'm saying roll that out using a blueprint that we have in our program, and they're in, they're part of those blueprints in our book, Marketing in Mind States, to reestablish a unique point of view on every one of these touch points to make sure you're delivering on that psychological mindset that we uncovered.
Excellent. I can see where, like, if you rewrote, you'd start with your personal bio. You want to make some changes there in your personal LinkedIn bio on your website. Then next, on your company bio, you want to start reflecting that language in there as well. And then on as people follow the story arc on your website. No,
absolutely. Even down to how your tagline, and maybe even how I used to end my emails with things like "be compelling," right? And that's something I absolutely am adamant about, trying to be compelling in everything we do. But I should be evaluating that. Does that still make sense? I think it does for me. I think it's fine. But just take the time to evaluate all these little things to say, okay, am I being consistent? We've talked about this, that there's this lack of consistency. A couple of years ago, we talked about the empathy gap, and that there's $300 or $400 worth of lost sales every year because what your customers expect from you are not being realized. Now, I think that that 3 or 400 million is way underestimated. I think it's much bigger than that. So realize that every time, at every little touch point you have, whether it's your LinkedIn profile, whether it's your signature page, all these things, if you're not consistent with the mindset of your customer, it can just create an empathy gap. And when you have more of these empathy gaps between you and your customer, eventually you're not going to feel intuitive. You're not going to seem like you kind of are really understood. And as a customer, you may go find somebody who does understand you. So broaden out your horizon, really optimize your entire marketing. And just like you said, all those things of, if somebody was to find me on LinkedIn, what would that profile look like? If somebody was to find me through Facebook, what would my group name be? What would I talk about on my group? What kind of polls would I run on my group, et cetera? I know it can be tedious, and I don't think you can do this all in a day, but get in the habit of doing that. And very quickly, you'll find you'll have an established, credible point of view to your customer that is empathetic and that it really drives their subconscious to really desire what you offer.
When I think about what you've done right as well during this time, having this live stream on a regular basis, imagine what's happening when people run across this conversation that you're having. They're going, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Here he's talking about it specifically. He's taken time out of his vacation. This is really important. He's real approachable. He's knowledgeable. It feels safe. I feel understood.
Yeah. And I'm trying to be relevant in the moment, right? It doesn't do you any good for you to talk to me pre-pandemic about what the world was happening when we know the world has changed. So I had to change my business strategy. This was a part of our business strategy that you delivered for me, right? Steve, you're like, we got to pivot your business strategy. So we've done that as best we can. So you just got to do the same thing. Like, change. If you're not changing, you're dying. I mean, I really believe that. Unfortunately, that's just the times we're in. So you got to change with your customer, change with the times.
All right. Speaking of change, now we're changing over to asking some questions. So, Will, we get these questions submitted. They're excellent questions, and people are interested in knowing them. So, what's Will's answer? You ready for the first one?
I am ready for the first one. I'm looking down, seeing what is it. Okay.
All right. How is consumer psychology used by marketers?
Yes. Okay. First off, it should be used by marketers, and not all marketers use consumer psychology, and not all businesses use consumer psychology. But if you're going to change anything in your business, you better understand psychology, because every single point of revenue, every single percentage of growth comes from a change in behavior. And that requires you to know consumer psychology. So the question again, real quick on that, Steve, was how is consumer psychology used by marketers? Marketers use consumer psychology to understand the latent psychological needs that need to meet in their messaging. And just like we talked about an empathy gap, psychology allows you, if you understand the psychology of your customer, to lessen a empathy gap. And the more you message to somebody's psychology, the more they feel appreciated, the more they feel loved, the more they feel understood. And in today's overly cluttered, constantly marketing, or people are marketing for your attention, it's only those customers that feel that they are understood by those businesses. Those are the companies that they shop for. So marketers use consumer psychology to understand and message so that they will get their customers to buy.
Excellent. So that empathy gap is basically that it gets you to not feel like that slimy salesperson, right? Everybody complains about that. And the reason they say that is because they don't feel that slimy salesperson cares about them. He or she's just trying to make their quota. And so by addressing this empathy gap, guess what you're doing? You're communicating you care, and it's not all about you.
That's right. And so it's a small thing, but if you do that right now, you are in the top 1% of all companies out there. Just flat out.
What a low bar to be excellent. All right. You ready for the next one?
I am. Yes, sir.
Why do we need to conduct market research, Will? Lots of questions here.
Yeah. On the market research side, I hear this a lot. And I think it's because a lot of small businesses feel as if it's expensive. And what do I really get out? If you do good marketing research, it will save you a large amount of time, money, and effort. Why? Marketing research allows you to develop this empathy that you need to make somebody feel like they're understood, to make somebody feel like you get them and that you're not trying to sell them or you're not trying to be sleazy. How do you understand how to pivot your company if you're not doing marketing research? If you don't do marketing research, you may be tempted to go with a lower price alternative, or you may be tempted to do what maybe what your spouse is saying or what you read on the internet. Marketing research takes away all of that kind of ambiguity, allows you to focus in on your customer and understanding them, what their wants, needs, desires, attitudes, preferences, beliefs, all that stuff that's required in today's great companies and great messaging, to promote those companies, to get customers to actually buy into your brand. So conducting marketing research actually eliminates a ton of time, effort, and money when done right.
So when I think of market research, I think of big companies employing an army of researchers, but smaller individual small businesses can do the same thing, right, Will?
I believe that. I was one of those guys who worked at major companies who had millions of dollars of research budget. I had a $20 million research budget at one point. What I'm doing now is I'm working with small businesses who don't have a research budget. Well, how do you do research? Some of the easiest and least expensive is just literally to ask your customers 2 questions. And I actually just helped one of my clients last week. She said, people are coming into my restaurant. I want to really understand if their aspirations have changed. What are the 2 questions to ask them? She was working the register. And here's what I said. I said, ask your customers, hey, thanks for coming in here. Just let me ask you, why did you choose this restaurant over the one down the street? And then why was that important to you? Those 2 questions, just by doing that, helps her down that path of understanding her customers' aspirations. And when you understand somebody's aspirations, that was the basis of the whole brand refresh, right? That now you can pivot your company. You can now tweak your products and services, et cetera. So you can do this literally for free if you just kind of get out of your comfort zone and literally ask your customers, what do they want and why do they want it? Those are the only 2 questions you need to worry about. Everything else you can get around without asking.
And I think you'll be surprised if you be quiet and really listen. It's not going to be a feature. It's not going to be the toast or in that restaurant. It's not what it's going to be something that seems illogical and it's emotional. Yeah. It's like my family loves hanging out here because we're comfortable or like we love the lighting. It'll be something that you're surprised about.
Yep. And it's those surprises that differentiate you versus that other company down the road who says we have better toast.
Yeah.
That's it.
Period. Here's the next one. It's excellent. So what is market behavior? Yeah.
This sometimes gets confused with like, what is consumer behavior? What is customer behavior? Okay. Market behavior is literally just looking at the entire marketplace, whoever you serve. And that could be people in the United States, or it could be literally people in your local area. I don't know what your situation is, but market behavior is the analysis of collectively, how are they behaving? So let's go back to our example a little while ago. If we know that in our market, we see that people are becoming more cautious versus optimistic because of the pandemic and things like that, market behavior is the analysis of saying, hey, our market is becoming more, or they seem to be acting more cautious. Therefore, they're spending less. They're taking more time to make decisions. They're saying no more often. Those are the behaviors of the market. It's really critical for you to know market behavior. And you don't have to study market behavior. You have to be aware that your entire market can change. And when your entire market changes, you need to change with it. So that's what really market behavior is. It's understanding a group of individuals and how they behave. And if you can isolate why that behavior changed, then you have those insights needed, that research needed to pivot your company or your messaging to hopefully resonate better with them.
Excellent. These are excellent questions, Will. It's like, you know your stuff, actually. You should write a book. Oh, wait a minute. You did. It's titled Marketing the Mind States.
That's right.
The Practical Guide to Applying Behavior Design to Research and Marketing. All right. So, Will, tell us a little bit about your Mindstate Marketing Partnership Program.
Yep. In the last couple of weeks, because we had a lot of companies saying, you have a master class, but I want to have you work with me over time to refresh my brand, basically, to relook at my business, to jumpstart growth, because we're having questions from companies saying, I didn't do anything different, but for whatever reason, I'm not accelerating my growth like my other competitors are. I'm not growing like I thought I would be, even though the pandemic's over and people are starting to buy more things. That's why we created the Mindstate Marketing Partnership Program. It's an 8-week program where you work with me live, one-on-one, over the course of 8 weeks, where we do a series of, you're going to read parts of my book. You're going to actually then watch videos where I talk about principles in the book and how they relate to me personally as either a father, as a business owner, etc. And I'm also going to walk you through that same principle as it relates to a company that we helped build from the ground up using Mindstate marketing. Then I'm going to ask you to do activities on your own, and you're going to email me the results of these activities. And you're going to do this for yourself. And we're going to talk about how you eat healthy, right? So we're going to help your healthy eating journey, because I think the best way to apply behavioral science is to apply it to you first before you even apply it to your business. So you're going to do a personal activity and a business activity where we work through all those stages that we've talked about in the last 2 weeks about refreshing your brand to revitalize your marketing. We're going to take every one of those 7 steps, and we're going to expand those over the course of 7 weeks or a week at a time to get you to a better place. So at the very end of this 8-week program, you're going to totally revamp your entire marketing. You're going to relook and repivot at your business strategy. You're going to get a Mindstate marketing blueprint that's customized for you and your business so you can grow your marketing. And the whole point of this, guys, is that in 8 weeks, we can get your sales going faster and faster. And so you can kind of make those revenues and catch up to maybe where you thought you were going to be at the beginning of the year.
All right. So another great episode of the Mindstate Marketing Hour with Will Leach. He's the author of Marketing the Mind States, How to Use Science to Connect with Your Clients. You can learn more at www.mindstategroup.com. So, Will, I'm kind of like this. You travel. Okay.
Yeah.
Hop in. You seem to like really hit it out of the ballpark when you're like relaxed, sitting on a porch.
Yeah, and Louie's not here. Unfortunately, Louie's not here. I love when my cat Louie jumps up, and we couldn't take him here because Nana has a little dog. But yeah, maybe I should maybe like last summer, I went to all these different places for a couple of weeks just to escape the Dallas heat. Maybe we'll do that. If nothing else, maybe I'll try to pivot to different parts of my house. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll retitle it the Mindstate Marketing Hour Roadshow. And I'm the co-host, Steve Brown. I'm the smartest guy in marketing because I get to hang out with Will Leach every week. And you can be the smartest one on your team in marketing. If you get his book, be sure to go get his book, Marketing in Mind States. Stay tuned for next week. We'll have another excellent episode of the Mindstate Marketing Hour. If you got any questions, be sure to reach out at mindstategroup.com. Will, any last words?
No last words. If you have the luxury right now, taking a vacation, go to the woods. These woods are amazing. I plan on doing some tubing this afternoon, and I encourage you all for release. We need some release nowadays, and go try to get a vacation. If at all possible, go to some woods. Do yourself a favor.
All right. Go play, Will. This was fun.
I will.
And,
hey, thank you so much, Steve.
And this is a wrap.